are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, September 9th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comment recognized, go to the dollar sign icon in the chat. This will create a super chat for you that I will acknowledge during the live broadcast of anything that you want to say on the show. Well, obviously it has to be appropriate, but like I said, I'll highlight it during the live broadcast, and it just makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution that you can make means the world to us. Also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link, which is on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment, gsmcpodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. I hope everybody enjoyed this past week of both college football and the NFL being back. So it's going to be basically all NFL. And throughout the week, I will cover the other games. We're not going to get to every single game today, but as we move throughout the week, we'll get to them. So we're going to start off the show. We'll talk about the news that broke yesterday about Dak Prescott getting his new deal. So he's locked in with the Cowboys. I know I said I thought he was going to be the odd man out, but that's not the case. He gets his new deal, and we're also going to talk about the Cowboys and their victory over the Browns, 33-17. And this won't be the only time we talk about the Browns this week. I'm telling you that right now. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about Jordan Love's injury on Friday. We'll get into talking about the Brazil game as well, what the timetable is for Jordan Love, the Packers starting quarterback. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about last night's Sunday night game between the Detroit Lions and the LA Rams. The Lions once again defeating the Rams in overtime, 26-20. Then we'll talk about the rookie quarterbacks and how they did over the weekend in their debuts as well. And then in the final part of the show, we will preview tonight's game between the Jets and the 49ers as Aaron Rodgers makes his return. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Dallas Cowboys. And like I said, news broke yesterday. Dak Prescott gets his new contract, a 4-year, $240 million extension, $231 million guaranteed, and he becomes the first player to earn $60 million per year. So Dak ends up getting his money. And again, I'm going to admit, I was wrong. And that just goes to show you how the negotiation process goes and just how you just don't know anything. Because, from interviews and just the way things were going, it just didn't seem like the Cowboys were going to get a deal done with Dak at the start of the season. We were going to have to wait till after this season played out. But that was not the case. They get the deal done with CeeDee Lamb. Now they get the deal done with Dak. So those guys are locked in long term. Well, another 4-year deal, but still. So now, when the time comes, they will work on getting a deal done with Micah Parsons. But this is big for the Cowboys, however you look at it, because if they were to let go of Dak and let him walk, I mean, there would be teams lining up to sign him. And let me tell you, there were teams yesterday, and even the team that the Cowboys played against, they could have used Dak yesterday. And the game that I was at yesterday, I'll admit, the team I was watching for 60 minutes yesterday, they could have used Dak. But, yeah, it was big for the Cowboys to get this done because, I mean, what was what was their plan going to be if Dak were to leave? Because you have Trey Lance on the roster, but, he hasn't really played since the 49ers drafted him when they did, and then the Cowboys got him in a trade. But in the preseason, that 5 interception game that he had, it's not good. And, he would have been the alternative as well as, Cooper Rush. I mean, Cooper Rush is a solid backup, and he's won games for the Cowboys. But, those aren't your long-term answers there. Dak Prescott is. And that's why they got this deal done. Now, I know when it comes to Dak, he is who he is. He's a solid quarterback, puts up good numbers. But in the postseason, that's, where he struggles. But, Dak Prescott gives the Cowboys the best chance to win. And then if you let him go, it's like, well, where do you go from here? And I know I gave you the options, some of the options, but, what would they have? What are they going to go and draft a quarterback? But they wouldn't have a high enough pick to do so. Because the Cowboys right now, they have a roster. I know it's got issues, but they have a roster right now that can compete. So, if you let Dak go, the quarterback is the most important position. So, like I said, this is big for the Cowboys. I was wrong. I was thinking, maybe Dak's on his way out. And the Cowboys did play yesterday. And I'll be honest, look, I didn't really get to watch a lot of football yesterday. Well, I did get to watch a lot of football, but at the game I was at. So I got to go back and look at some of the highlights and, game film, things like that. But, I was keeping up with the scores and, did catch, most of the second half of the game against the Browns, but the Cowboys dominated this game. And Dak Prescott didn't put up huge numbers in this game because, you know what, he didn't have to. He didn't have to. And what's funny is the Browns, they were winning at one point. They were up 3-0, but then after that, the Cowboys never looked back. This was all Cowboys. They had a day, especially their defense, against Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. But yeah, these are Dak's numbers. Again, not spectacular, but you know what? He didn't have to be spectacular. Because, like I said, the Cowboys dominated this game. And the one touchdown was to Brandon Cooks. And also Ezekiel Elliott had a touchdown yesterday as well. So, he's back in Dallas wearing the number 15 this time. It was a solid win. Trayvon Diggs had an interception, so already he's making an impact. His first game back after missing all of last year with the torn ACL. Kavonte Turpin had a punt return in this game. CeeDee Lamb, of course, was the leading receiver, 5 receptions for 61 yards. Also had a few carries in this game as well. Cowboys defense had 6 sacks in this game. Eric Kendricks had an interception and 2 sacks, so he made an impact his first game as a Cowboy. DeMarcus Lawrence had 2 sacks in this game. Micah Parsons had a sack. And also their stud kicker, Brandon Aubrey. 4 for 4 on field goals. He made a 57-yarder. He was 3 for 3 on extra points. He's a real weapon for them. He's one of the best kickers in the NFL. And he showed that yesterday once again. But yeah, all around, solid victory for the Cowboys. I mean, they only ran the ball. They ran the ball for over 100 yards, 102 yards. Zeke had 40 yards on the ground. Rico Dowdle had 26. Dalvin Cook was not active for this game, but you figure he's going to be involved in the rotation at some point. But it was a good victory for the Cowboys. Can't really complain about that. They'll be playing the Saints next week, who absolutely destroyed the Panthers yesterday. We won't get to them, but we'll, like I said, we're going to go throughout the week, and I'll try to get to every single game. Give each game, some love, of course. But, yeah, overall, solid victory for the Cowboys. Browns, I mean, that was as ugly as it could get. especially for their quarterback, Deshaun Watson. He did not play well in this game. His stats on the day from yesterday, he went 24 of 45 for 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Also ran the ball for 39 yards. David Njoku was their leading receiver. He had 4 receptions for 44 yards. I think he left this game with an injury. They could have scored another touchdown in this game. Amari Cooper, had it in his hands, but he dropped it. Not that it really would have mattered. But, yeah, that was bad. That was bad. Deshaun Watson was not good. And that is going to be an issue for the Browns. Because, you went up against a good Cowboys team. I'd probably put them, close to this, around the same group of teams. Because the Browns have a very good roster. And they made the playoffs last year. They got a good head coach. They got a good defense. I like their skill position players. Their offensive line is solid. Although they were missing, Jarek Wills didn't play in this game yesterday. One of their offensive linemen. But the quarterback is going to be the problem. And I said that throughout the year, you're going to see an inconsistent Deshaun Watson. Like, I do think Deshaun Watson at times is going to have his moments. But then you're going to have games like this. And if the Browns are going to want to go very far this year, Deshaun Watson has to play better. And he just did not play well. And it's not like it was against a bad team. Now, if it's against a bad team, that's, even worse. Cowboys are going to be good. And Deshaun Watson did not play well. And also, I just want to say, you see how that quarterback in Tampa's playing. Although you could say, well, he was playing against a bad Commanders defense. Maybe the Browns are having those internal conversations like, maybe we should have held on to that guy. Maybe we should have held on to him. But that's a conversation for a different day, which we will have that conversation in the coming days this week. But overall, good performance for the Cowboys. Look, I know it's one game, but people had their concerns. Look, if they stay healthy, this team's going to win their fair share of games, and they'll be in the playoffs. So, that's my thoughts on this game. Let me know what you guys think. What were some of your takeaways from it? So, with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss Jordan Love's injury as well as the Brazil game on Friday. I'll give you my thoughts on that when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to dip, you choose to fight, or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right. Oh, I don't know what happened to my camera here. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to get into discussing Jordan Love's injury as well as talking about the Brazil game from Friday. So, yeah, apologize for the camera falling over, but at least it didn't freeze, because, that usually happens. But anyways, yeah, let's get into that. So, Jordan Love got hurt. And you guys know how many times I say, look, as long as we avoid injuries this year, we'll be fine, even though they're inevitable. Well, it's already starting. And, it continued into the day yesterday. But yeah, it's already starting. Jordan Love ended up getting hurt on the second to last play of the game. So what happened was they were trying to throw a Hail Mary. Well, not on that play, but they were trying to get into that range to throw a Hail Mary to try to win, and maybe Jordan Love would have had his Hail Rodgers moment. Because how many Hail Marys did Aaron Rodgers hit with Green Bay? So on the second to last play, well, first Jordan Love made a great play. He threw a nice pass to Jayden Reed on the sideline to get them, in a good position to throw a Hail Mary. Then on the next play, he's trying to, avoid getting sacked, and he throws a backward pass to Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs is able to get out of bounds. But on that play, Jordan Love got brought down awkwardly, and he was hurt. And, he was writhing in pain, and, they were able to help him off the field, and he was putting some weight on the leg that got hurt, that was injured. So that was at least a little bit encouraging in the moment, but then again, people were saying, some of my coworkers were like, well, look at what happened with Aaron Rodgers last year. He stood up after he got sacked, and this is with the torn Achilles, and then he went back down to the ground, but he walked off the field and was able to get on the cart under his own power. So that really didn't matter. But as we got into, Jordan Love's ACL was intact, and it's believed that he has an MCL sprain, and the timeline of that injury is 3 to 6 weeks. But he could be back sooner, and I think he will be back sooner. But that is a huge blow to this Packers team. Well, because that's the most important position. And did Jordan Love play great in this game? No. But you know what? Both quarterbacks didn't. This was a sloppy game. But before I get into that, I just want to keep talking about Jordan Love here, though. It's going to be tough for the Packers. Even with it being, a couple of weeks that he's out. Because I think he'll be back within 3 weeks. That's my guess. And I'm not a doctor at all. No experience in the medical field. Don't want any experience, because let the medical professionals handle it. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. But you're not going to see me operating on a person. That's just not happening. But anyways, I think my guess is he's going to be back within the 3-week time frame. But with that being said, though, the Packers are 0-1, and looking at their schedule, it's not like they have this gauntlet of a schedule coming up. But now with Jordan Love being out, they really, they really didn't address the backup quarterback position. They traded for Malik Willis, who came in the very last play to try to throw the Hail Mary, and he got sacked. So the Packers the next 3 weeks, if he comes back within that time frame. But we'll go to week 6. The 3 to 6 weeks, they say, if it's the max of 6 weeks. They take on the Colts at home next week. They're at the Titans, home against the Vikings, at the Rams, and then home against the Cardinals. So if the Packers, let's say Jordan Love is out until we get to week 7 when they play the Texans. If the Packers could go maybe 2-4 or 2-3, 2-3 actually. Jordan Love comes back. If they're around there. I mean, it's not terrible. I guess the good thing is that the Packers have, 3 home games. I mean, the Rams game, that one's the toughest game. But the way the Titans looked, well, actually, I would say the Colts is right up there too. The way the Titans played yesterday, I mean, they should have won that game, but the way Will Levis played yesterday, I mean, that game is in Tennessee. At home against the Vikings, I mean, Sam Darnold looked good. And that was the game I was at. He looked good. But, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, and especially if you have a backup quarterback that just really cannot generate anything. Now, there are options out there. They can maybe potentially trade for another quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is a name that has constantly come up, so maybe they go out and they could bring him in. I think if you want to do that, because I don't know about Malik Willis. I don't know if he is the answer there. I think you should try to get an upgrade at the quarterback position. And again, it's not a long-term commitment. Jordan Love is not going to be out for the whole year. He's coming back at some point. But you don't want this season to unravel and have this steep mountain to climb. You want to have at least a little bit of a hill. Because the Packers could overcome that. Because I think they're a good enough team that they'll be, like I said, if Jordan Love comes back and the Packers are 2-4, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, just a huge blow to the Packers, and hopefully, Jordan Love gets back quick. Because, I was looking forward to see what he could do. And, now we're going to be without him for a couple weeks. And, it would have been nice to see him go up against Anthony Richardson. Because Anthony Richardson balled out yesterday. I know the Colts lost a tough game, but, from what I saw, he played really well. And the Colts got to be very encouraged by that. But let's get to the game. Now, very sloppy game. I mean, the very first run by Saquon Barkley, he fell for the Eagles. Both quarterbacks just were inconsistent at times. There were turnovers by both teams. It just was a very sloppy game. The field conditions, I'm sorry, they were not great. That field was a mess. And it's not just Saquon Barkley. Players are slipping all over the place. And I'm not going to blame the field for why Jordan Love got hurt. It's just, it was a freak injury. The player on the Eagles, Carter's trying to make a tackle and, tackled him the wrong way. And, he was getting some rude messages on his social media account. And there's no place for that. There's no place for that. That shouldn't be happening. So, he was dealing with that, posted them on his Instagram story, and just some of the messages, I mean, it's horrible. It really is. But, yeah, so it just, the field was not great, and I know some players were skeptical about it, and they not. That should not have been a field to be played on. Now, it was great that the NFL had a game being played in Brazil, but got to do better with the field conditions. So the final score ended up being 34-29. But yeah, like I said, sloppy game. Both quarterbacks turned the ball over. Jordan Love had a pick in this game. Jalen Hurts had a couple of interceptions. Xavier McKinney had a pick. His first game as a Packer. But Jalen Hurts also fumbled the ball too. So Jalen Hurts had 3 turnovers in this game. And what did I say? Jalen Hurts has to eliminate the turnovers, or reduce the turnovers at least. And already he had a 3-turnover game. But then he made some good plays, like the touchdown to A.J. Brown to open up the second half, the throw to Saquon Barkley. So it was a mixed bag for Jalen Hurts. And it was a mixed bag for Jordan Love because, he threw a pick, but, connected with Jayden Reed, 4 receptions for 138 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns in this game. He really had an unbelievable game. Josh Jacobs was their leading rusher for the Packers. But Saquon Barkley, and let me tell you something. It's only 1 week, but Giant fans, they really miss Saquon Barkley. 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and then a receiving touchdown as well. He looks great with the Eagles, which I'm not surprised. He's running behind a very good offensive line, although the fumble, I actually will say, the fumble that happened that Hurts lost, that was on, a botched snap. So, they got Cam Jurgens now starting with Jason Kelce retiring. They got to get on the same page there. And we saw, Hurts having a conversation with Jurgens on the sideline. But Saquon Barkley, an unbelievable game. Not really surprised. And, also from a fantasy perspective, because I did approach one of my drafts differently than I did others. I should have had the same approach across the board, and I would have had Saquon Barkley in 3 of the 5 leagues that I'm in. He was spectacular, and that's going to continue. That's what you're going to see. So, but yeah, both defenses didn't really play well. A lot of penalties in this game. It was a very, very sloppy game. But you know what? There was sloppy football across the board. It wasn't just this game. So, once we get more into the season, we're going to see better football, but just very sloppy. And the field conditions did not help. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were some of your takeaways from it? Again, wishing Jordan Love a speedy recovery. Hopefully, he gets back, the minimum 3 weeks, because the Packers need him. And we'll see. We'll keep an eye on what the Packers do if they bring in another quarterback. But before we go to break, just want to remind you guys, once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will create a super chat that you can put on the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it. And it just makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. Any contribution that you can make to the show means the world to us. Also, the alternative way to help out the show is by going to the link on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment, gsmcpodcast.net. Like I said, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. So we're going to come back from our next break. We'll get into the thrilling Sunday Night Football matchup finish between the Rams and the Lions. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to talk about the overtime game between the Rams and the Lions. The Lions taking that 26-20, but let's get into the specifics of that game. So, obviously, these two teams met in the playoffs. Last year, the Lions winning by a score of 24-23, and this was another solid game. It didn't look good for a while for the Rams because I mean, first of all, like I couldn't even believe this. I mean, if you watch the game and you listening to the broadcast, they were ravaged by injuries on the offensive line, and it was 17-3 at one point. And on top of that, Puka Nacua had to leave as well with a knee injury. And we'll have to see what his status is. So he could be out for a while. It just looked like things were falling apart for the Rams. And also Matthew Stafford had to get his ankle taped. It was rough. But the Rams, to their credit, they hung in. They came back. And at one point, we're actually winning the game. Jared Goff threw an interception. It looked like the Rams were going to pull off the upset. And that's what I said. I said that the Rams were going to win this game outright. And I was hoping to be right. I was very close, but key thing, very close. Lions ended up tying the game right before the end of regulation. They got the ball to start overtime, and they went right down the field. They ran the ball down the Rams' throat, and David Montgomery scored the game-winning touchdown, and the Lions were able to take the victory there. But my biggest takeaway a couple of takeaways. One of my biggest takeaways is Cooper Kupp is back. And from a fantasy perspective, I have him in a couple of leagues, so it was nice. But in my main league, I took Puka Nacua. And I took him with my second pick. And I was kicking myself after Saquon Barkley, because I passed up on drafting Saquon Barkley in that league, and I took Puka. And it looks so bad right now, because not only did Saquon Barkley have a big game, but Puka Nacua ended up getting hurt. So, and look, I'm not going to be like one of those people that's going to, go into, Puka's DMs and be like, why'd you have to get hurt? Because there's so many people that do that. But I'm really kicking myself right now. It was for that league, it was rough. Overall, could be a good week for me in my other leagues. And in the spread pool, we're looking at 7 or 8 wins. Depending on what happens tonight, we're either getting 7 or 8. So, we're already picking up where we left off last year. But it's just, I'm upset. I'm upset at myself because I should have just stayed with the same approach. But anyways, yeah, the Rams getting killed by injuries. But Cooper Kupp looked great last night. Was targeted 21 times, 14 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. And the touchdown was late in the game. That was to put the Rams up 20-17. He looks like he's back. And also another player that, it's funny, I was recently watching the Rams-Buccaneers highlights from a few years ago in the playoff game. And Tyler Johnson is on the Rams now. I didn't know that. He used to be on the Buccaneers. Now he's on the Rams. And he had a big play late in the game. 63-yard reception. He had 5 receptions for 79 yards, so he was their second receiver, leading receiver on the team. Kyron Williams had 18 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. The Lions, did a good job at, keeping him in check, but that had a lot to do with the offensive line of the Rams being ravaged by injuries. And Matthew Stafford was a mixed bag, threw a bad red zone interception late in the first half. He went 34 of 49, 317 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And then for the Lions, Jared Goff, he was okay last night. Had a bad interception as well. 18 of 28, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. They ran the ball for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. And it was funny because they showed on NBC a clip of Aaron Donald and his wife, his significant other, and it was a video of her asking Aaron Donald if he misses playing, and Aaron Donald was sleeping. So that's any indication he might not be coming back for the Rams. They missed him when it comes to stopping the run last night, but I thought that was funny that they showed that. But my other takeaway from the game too, Jameson Williams, 5 receptions for 121 yards and a touchdown. He had a big game, and that's something else that I've said, and the Lions, they've really been talking him up, is can Jameson Williams emerge as that other wide receiver in this offense? Because we know what Amon-Ra St. Brown brings to the table and Sam Laporta, but what other pass catcher is going to step up? And obviously they got the 2 studs at running back. But Jameson Williams stepped up. Did have to leave the game briefly Got banged up at one point, but came back in. But yeah, played really well. Amon-Ra St. Brown he had 3 receptions for 13 yards, which was huge for me because I'm going against him in another league. So tonight, I'm up by less than a point, I think, around that. But I have Deebo Samuel and Tyler Conklin. And this is the league that I didn't start Isaiah Likely. And then my uncle has Brandon Ayuk. So it's going to be very close. But yeah, the Rams held Amon-Ra St. Brown in check. And Jameson Williams had a solid game. The Lions had a couple of sacks in this game. Alex Anzalone was making plays early on. And then for the Rams, how many sacks did they have? I think they had 2 as well. Yeah, they had 2 sacks as well. But yeah, it was a good game. The Rams are going to be, if Cooper Kupp is going to play like the Cooper Kupp of old, I mean, that changes a lot of things for the Rams. But losing Puka Nacua, that's a big loss. And he had a great rookie season. So my guess, I don't think it's season ending, but he's going to be out for an extended period of time. So that's a loss for them. So other guys are going to have to step up. Demarcus Robinson did a good job last year. As that number 3 option, he's going to, be more involved. And Colby Parkinson was making some plays for them. He's the tight end they brought over from Seattle, because Tyler Higbee is still out. But, yeah, this was another solid game to watch. And, the Lions, they pick up where they left off. And they're trying to, go further this year. And they're my Super Bowl pick to represent the NFC. And, again, the offense didn't look great last night at times. Again, the Rams, it looked like they were going to run away with it. On the broadcast, them talking about all the injuries that the Rams are dealing with on the offensive line, and then Puka gets hurt. You're thinking, yeah, this is... And Stafford didn't look great at times. You thought, this is not the Rams' day. The Lions are going to run away with this thing. But no, the Rams, to give them credit, they were able to come back. And, again, they were winning at one point. But, just couldn't get the job done. They did go for it at one point where they could have opted to kick a field goal. They didn't do that, and they ended up not getting it. Cooper Kupp ended up dropping that pass. I think that was the 4th down play. And then also Matthew Stafford throwing that red zone interception. And that was 3 points that got taken off the board at least. So, those don't happen, and you go for the points there, maybe the Rams still end up winning. Because between the 3rd and 4th quarter, the Rams did outscore the Lions 17-10. But yeah, the Lions ended up getting the ball in overtime. Matthew Stafford did what I would have did and called heads, but it ended up being tails, and I said that might be it. And the Lions, like I said, they ran the ball the entire time on that drive. I don't think did they even throw a pass on that drive? Let's see. They went 8 plays, 70 yards. Yeah, so there was a run by Khalif Raymond, a 21-yard run by David Montgomery, a 9-yard run by Montgomery. Yeah, there was a 10-yard pass to Jahmyr Gibbs, so they didn't. It was one pass play, that drive. But yeah, it was all running plays for the most part. And yeah, the Lions ended up winning that game. Like I said, Jared Goff threw that pick late. The Rams cashed in and scored a touchdown. That was the touchdown pass to Cooper Kupp by Matthew Stafford from 9 yards out. Both teams then punted. The Rams were close to not necessarily icing this game, but putting them, positioned to win this game. And Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp on 3rd down just missed. I think it was off the fingertips of Kupp on 3rd down. They connect on that, and we could be having a different conversation there as well. But that did not happen. But another solid game by both teams. And they were saying it, and I agree. Can these teams play every week? Because, both games that they played between this and the playoffs have been very entertaining. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on this game. The Rams, who do they take on next week? They will be going up against... they're going up against the Cardinals next week. And as for the Lions, they will be taking on the Buccaneers. So another playoff rematch from last year. So, and the Buccaneers played really well yesterday. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans looked great. They picking up where they left off, just not on my fantasy team this year. Well, Mike Evans I have in one of my dynasty leagues, but I really miss my team from last year in my main league. That's all I have to say. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Like I said, Cooper Kupp is back, and Jameson Williams. So far so good. Looks good in this first game here. Because if he could, like I said, if he could be that number 2 weapon, that number 2 wide receiver, that really helps out the Lions and makes their offense even more dangerous. So when we come back from our next break, we'll take a look at the rookie quarterback performances, how they all did, what were my takeaways when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the fourth part of the show, we're going to get into now talking about the rookie quarterback performances. How did they all do? It wasn't great. One of them did win. Their team did win, but it was kind of... It wasn't great for the three of them. Now, they did make their fair share of plays, but yeah, not great. And it's going to happen. Not everybody's going to be RG3 and go on the road against the Saints in the Superdome and just ball out. That's not always going to happen. So speaking of RG3, we'll talk about the Commanders quarterback actually first. So Jayden Daniels had 2 rushing touchdowns in his game, 88 yards on the ground, but he only went 17 of 24 for 184 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. The leading receiver in this game, the leading receivers in this game were their running backs. Austin Eckler had 4 receptions for 52 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. had 3 receptions for 49 yards. Zach Ertz had 3 for 28. Luke McCaffrey, 3 for 18. Terry McLaurin, 2 for 17. But, and actually, Jayden Daniels, looking at this right now, he had 3 fumbles in this game. Now, he didn't lose any of them, but, yeah, not great. Not great. Also, it didn't help that the Commanders' defense just could not stop the Buccaneers yesterday. Now, at one point, it was 13-7. So you thought, okay, this is a game now. But the Bucs pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. Baker Mayfield played really well. But, it is just one game. I'll be honest, I didn't watch a ton of highlights from all the games yesterday just because, I was coming home from the Giant game. And notice how I haven't really talked about that experience. Well, we'll get to it. If it's not today, we'll get to it. But look, you don't want to hit. First of all, you don't want to hit the panic button on any of these guys. It's their first start. You gotta expect some struggles. And the big thing, and for the Commanders especially, one of those teams, is to see improvement. And there's definitely things to like. That, one thing is the mobility. That's something that makes him extremely dangerous. But you want to see more than 184 passing yards. But, they could be trying to ease him into it. Like, I want to see Terry McLaurin more involved. I mean, 2 receptions for 17 yards. You want to see him more involved. And we'll see what happens. But, yeah, not great, but I'm gonna say not bad either for Jayden Daniels, but definitely a lot more to be desired. Bo Nix was not great. 26 of 42, 138 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Did have a rushing touchdown, and that was, a nice play there. He ended up being their leading rusher yesterday. This was a weird game with the Seahawks. The Seahawks won 26-20, but it's just a weird game. The Broncos got 2 safeties in this game, and I jokingly said, oh, that's payback for Super Bowl 48. Yeah, it's just a weird game. Their leading receiver was Josh Reynolds, 5 receptions for 45 yards. But, yeah, the 2 interceptions were bad. He threw the ball over 40 times. Look, the Broncos, I really don't think they're going to share. And it doesn't get any easier. I mean, next week is their home opener against the Steelers, but you got to deal with TJ Watt, and he had a game yesterday against the Falcons. He took over that game. So have to deal, now they're going to have to deal with that pass rush. That's not going to be fun. Then you got to go up against the Buccaneers, who have a good pass rush. And then you got to deal with the Jets, who also have a good pass rush. And the Buccaneers and the Jets are away games. So it doesn't get any easier for Bo Nix and the Broncos. So, yeah, and you're playing on the road against Seattle. Seattle is not an easy place to play in. And I know it's different now because, there's no more Legion of Boom. And Russell Wilson, prime Russell Wilson is no longer there. But, it's a tough place to play. It was a tough spot. But, Bo Nix was not good as well. And Caleb Williams, the last rookie quarterback here, he was not great either. Now, people are talking about the offensive line for the Bears, and I know there was one pass that he missed to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen was wide open. Caleb missed him on that. He fumbled in this game but didn't lose it. Didn't throw a pick. But yeah, Caleb Williams only went 14 of 29 for 93 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Ran the ball for 15 yards in this game. And the Bears at one point, they were losing 17-0. And I took the Titans in the spread pool, and I was like, wow, this looks great. But then the Bears scored 24 unanswered points. They had a blocked punt return for a touchdown, and they also had a pick six, which was a horrible play by Will Levis. He's going to the ground, and as he's doing that, he just kind of flicks the ball away. I don't know what he was trying to do there. Try to throw it away, whatever. Regardless, ended up being a pick six, and the Bears ended up winning the game. So, despite Caleb Williams not playing well, the Bears still won. And you'll take that. You'll take the ugly wins. Because you know what? Like, if you're struggling, as long as you're winning games, you could work through it. Now, it doesn't get any easier because next week, the Bears take on the Texans on Sunday Night Football. And the way the Texans played, the Bears are going to have a better offensive showing than what they had in this game. And one of the things going into this game that was talked about was the physicality of the Titans defense. And that showed out because the Bears offense really just couldn't get anything going. And let's see, how many sacks did the Titans defense finish with? I mean, they only had 2 sacks in the game. But that Bears defense is good. TJ Edwards had a fumble recovery in this game. The pick six was by Tyreek Stevenson. Also, Jalen Johnson had a pick as well. Yeah, Will Levis did not look good in this game. I mean, one highlight play was the touchdown pass to Okonkwo, their tight end. Tony Pollard looked good for them, but yeah, Will Levis did not look good. Again, just a lot of sloppy play yesterday, really across the board. So, and the NFL wants to extend the season to 18 games. Well, you're going to see even more sloppy quarterback play because it was bad. It was bad in a lot of games. But yeah, there was no RG3-like debut for any of these quarterbacks. You know, one of the things that we can't be prisoners of the moment. And I know sometimes I am. And listen, I'm like that with my team right now with the Giants, with how yesterday went. But you don't want to overreact. You know, we got to see more of a body of work from these three guys. And then, you know, once we get more into the season, and especially at the end of the season, then we will evaluate, you know, how these guys looked. But don't want to go too crazy. You know, they had their share of bad decisions. But you know what? For Caleb Williams, at least his team won the game. His team picked him up. So now he'll be going up against the Texans next week, so he's going to have to play a much better game, especially keeping up with that offense and how they looked. You know, he's going to want to keep up. I mean, he's going to want to play better. And you know what? I think he will. For Jayden Daniels, I mean, the Commanders are going up against the Giants. So, you know, that's a game I think he could put up good numbers there. And then for Bo Nix, you're at home, but you're taking on another good pass rush. So it doesn't get any easier for Bo Nix and the Broncos. But let me know what you guys think. What were some of your takeaways from their debuts? I mean, I'm going to go back and watch the highlights all day long and you know, maybe watch some game film and some film breakdowns of how these guys did. But just on the surface, you know, it wasn't great. But one of them got a win. So at least for Caleb Williams, him and the Bears could work through it. But they got a very tough game next week, which I'm looking forward to, against the Texans. So, yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the rookie quarterbacks. Like I said, let me know what you guys think about their performances from yesterday. So we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will preview tonight's game between the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Jets, as Aaron Rodgers will be making his long-awaited return to the field once again, playing on Monday Night Football against a very good pass rush. And we'll break it all down when we come back. And it's, you know, look, the main thing for me, let's just hope that, you know, he gets through the whole game. He will, but, you know, against this pass rush, it's I'm going to be turning away every time he drops back. Because I'm just going to be afraid to watch him get hit. But yeah, we'll get into all that when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to now get into previewing tonight's Monday Night Football matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Jets. And the biggest storyline going into this game, now there are some storylines, of course. You know, Brandon Ayuk's got his new deal. Trent Williams' his new deal. We'll keep an eye on Christian McCaffrey's status for the game because, he's questionable, but he's going to play. But I think the biggest storyline by far is Aaron Rodgers making his return. It's been a long road back for him. Last year, I mean, going from 100 to 0 that fast, when he comes out running with the American flag and that Jets crowd going crazy, it was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And then to see what ended up happening and what ended up transpiring in that game with him getting hurt after 4 plays, I mean, it was heartbreaking. It really was. And for someone that has grown up watching this guy, it really was. It was a gut punch. It was a gut punch for a lot of people. Football fans in general, Jet fans, me. It was unfortunate what happened. But he makes his return to the field. And, he comes back against a team that, maybe you could have pushed this game to later on in the season, maybe. Maybe would have eased him into it. But no, the NFL didn't do that. They were like, you know what? We're going to put you on Monday night again. And get this, against the 49ers, who have one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. So they're throwing him right back in. And didn't get any preseason snaps, which, I get, but I disagreed with it. I think he should have played at least one series. Just give him at least some reps. And then that's it. But the Jets didn't want to do that, and I get it. I completely understand. But you saw Kirk Cousins yesterday. Think he could have used some preseason reps. In terms of this game, these two teams have very good defenses. And I don't know what's going on with Hassan Reddick. Is he even going to play for the Jets? What's going on? But even without Hassan Reddick, this Jets team still has a very good defense. And I think they're going to give Brock Purdy some... But I do think this 49ers offense at full strength now, because McCaffrey's going to play, they're going to make their fair share of plays. And it's really going to come down to how well is Aaron Rodgers going to play tonight? And if he's going to get protections. What is the rust going to be like? What's the rust factor? Because... if he goes out there and he plays like Kirk Cousins and he has no time to throw and he's, just turning the ball over, which he doesn't do, but still, if the rust is really bad tonight, I don't really like the Jets' chances in this game. I did pick them in my spread pool because they are getting 5.5. If Rodgers doesn't have time to throw and the rust is really bad tonight, the Jets are it's going to be a long night. But, if the defense could keep it close, if, you rely on Breece Hall tonight, give him a ton of work. Because the 49ers in the playoffs, they struggled to stop the run. And Breece Hall could have a really big year. Was great towards the end of... had an overall solid year last year, but really towards the end of the year last year, he was great. And... now another year removed from the ACL injury. He's going to go... he's going to have a big year. So, I think that's one thing that the Jets are going to have to do tonight. Because you want to ease Aaron Rodgers back into it. You're going to have to rely on Breece Hall. And listen, if Breece Hall can have a big game and keep that 49ers offense off the field, that's huge. So, I'm more leaning towards Aaron Rodgers struggling. If he came back and he threw for over 300 yards, something he didn't do at all in 2022, and he throws 3 touchdowns, I mean, that would be unbelievable. But it's not. That's just not realistic. He's going to be rusty, but I'm going to say he doesn't embarrass himself tonight. I think he's going to do okay. I think as the game goes along, he'll get more into the flow, and he'll make plays tonight. But I do think the 49ers will win this game. I'm hoping the Jets defense keeps it within the number, within the 5.5. So I'm going to say the 49ers win this game. I'll say 23 to 20. Well, that's not even covering the 5.5. I'm going to say this is another 24-20 game. I'm going to say the Jets defense makes their fair share of plays. Give Brock Purdy some problems at times. But the 49ers, they're the better team. And they got all their players back. I mean, there are some concerns. I mean, there was a lot of offseason drama with the Brandon Ayuk stuff, the Trent Williams stuff, and then now the Ricky Pearsall stuff. And Christian McCaffrey's a little banged up. I mean, there's a lot going on. And, you're missing Dre Greenlaw on defense. So there could be a little bit of regression for the Niners. But I just think they got way too much talent that I don't think there's really going to be any kind of regression. I mean, maybe a little bit, but still think they're going to win 12, 13 games this year. But I'm just excited to see Aaron Rodgers back on the field. What is he going to look like after being away for so long? Just protect him. Give him time to throw. Keep the pressure at a minimum somehow. Because if he goes down, this season's not going anywhere. And every team in the AFC East won yesterday, believe it or not. It looked like the Patriots were going to be the only one, but the Bills, they came back after they were down by a lot. The Dolphins, and we got to get into the Dolphins tomorrow because that story of Tyreek Hill getting detained by police before the game for I think it was a parking violation. And I think also it was for reckless driving, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that broke yesterday. But he was able to play yesterday, and he scored an 80-yard touchdown. But that was another crazy thing that happened yesterday too, before the game. Because my friend texts in our sports chat that Tyreek Hill got arrested. And then we find out it was for, I think, a parking violation. But yeah, we'll get into that tomorrow. But yeah, that was just crazy news. But he still played. He was still able to play. But yeah, we'll get into that tomorrow. A lot of stuff we didn't get to today. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. What are your expectations for Rodgers and his return? How do you see it playing out? 49ers. I'm gonna say 24-20. That's my score prediction. So, well, mainly because I want to keep it within the 5.5. But we got some time left here, so let me get into a little bit of the game that I was at yesterday. So I talked about it. I went to the Giants-Vikings game yesterday. They were wearing their throwback uniforms. It's, celebrating the 100th year of the Giants. And it was one of the games that I just felt like this is one of the games that they can win. And boy, that was not the case. They get off to a good start, though. Not the offense, but the defense. They sacked Sam Darnold. They get the fumble recovery. But what ended up happening, and I said it, I'm like, you got to get 7. They didn't get it. They kicked a field goal. And then it looked like they were going to get off the field again, and the Vikings were not going to cash in on anything. but there was a pass interference call that put the Vikings in great field position. And that was the end of it. It was a horrible game to watch. The only highlight of the game, now Malik Neighbors made some plays, but honoring their history at halftime, with all the past Giant players being there for the 100th year celebration. And Carl Banks said on the radio broadcast to, I think Sean O'Hara, you almost want to put your pads back on and help the current Giants the way they were playing. But it was bad. It was bad. That was a rough game to watch. And I've been to some bad Giant games. 2017 when they played the Cowboys in December. This game, I mean, it's close. I mean, this one I think was worse than that. Even though the Giants scored a touchdown in the Dallas game I'm talking about. This might have been the worst Giant. Yeah, this was the worst Giant game I ever went to. Because the offense just could not get anything going. And we'll get into it during the week. I didn't want to get to it because there was other things I wanted to talk about and cover today. But that was an awful game. And I had my one friend who's a Vikings fan. They were happy. Good for them. But, yeah, for me, look, I didn't really have high expectations going into the year. I had them at 7 wins. They keep playing like that, they'll be lucky if they win maybe 3 games. So that's I talk about overreactions. No, I'm not. Look, I'm not overreacting. That was dreadful, that performance. So, well, let's hope that the Jets, the other New York team that plays in New Jersey, let's hope they put on a better showing than the team that actually was playing in MetLife did yesterday. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. So happy football is back. Like I said, we're going to continue discussing some other games that I didn't get to today. I could have just easily breezed through all of them, but no, I want to get into, some other games as well. Like, we'll get into the Dolphins game. We'll talk about the Texans and the Colts. The Giants, we'll get into them. We're going to cover all that this week. But I'm just happy that it's back. But yeah, make sure to check out all the other shows. Give the other shows some love, like I always say. And with that, that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to